So, welcome to the Digital Security Training for Nonprofits webinar. Before we start, I think that we need to go through a couple of rules that will help us keep this webinar and future webinars more clean and fluid. So, you should be muted when you come in, and please you can mute your microphones and turn off your cameras. If you have any questions or comments, we encourage you to participate in Zoom chat and ask questions, and we will later try to respond to all of your questions and maybe even start a discussion with each of you. You can, if you, for example, lose your internet connection or have some other technical problems, do not worry, just use the same link to come again to the same webinar. After this event webinar, you will get a follow-up email with this presentation and the recording of this webinar. So we haven't turned on the recording yet. So if you want to provide, keep your anonymity, you can always change your name to an alias and turn off your video. So if you care about this, you can do so. And Milica, my colleague, will turn on the recording of the webinar in a couple of seconds. So we'll give you time to opt out of sharing your presence to potential viewers of this webinar in the future. I am Marko Galjak from Catalyst Balkans, and many of you might have heard about Catalyst Balkans already. We are a regional nonprofit that operates in Western Balkans, and our main goal is to strengthen philanthropy in the whole infrastructure, including the nonprofit's capacity to fundraise and to manage their communities and better communicate their transparency and to use their data more efficiently. But what we do is not so important for this training. What is important for this training is how we do it. So our main methods to achieving our ends of increasing philanthropy in the region and bettering the infrastructure is through technology. We gather data about philanthropy. We use tools like constituents relationship management software, and we have several web platforms with web apps that essentially use data and IT technology to increase capacities of organizations and the whole infrastructures. So we're present in 7 countries of the Western Balkans. So ex-EU countries minus Slovenia plus Albania. So that is our geographic area. And in various countries we have various presence, but mainly we focus on philanthropy and social good. So today, apart from me, Marko Galjak from Catalyst Balkans, Igor Hrček will be speaking today. And today we have 2 sessions. This first session, which is an introductory session, is very short. I will be speaking for about 20 more minutes. And then Igor Hrček will have an extended session about WordPress and the security. So I think that when I thought about creating this introductory lecture, I thought about what will be useful for you to get out of this. So, but I think that it is important to have a bird's eye view of the entire region in digital security and relationship of nonprofits in the region to IT technology and digital security. So I wanted to present you the results of a survey that we did about this. And this is what the results of this survey is what gave us an idea for creating this digital security course, essentially. So you already got the agenda. Apart from Igor and me today, you will hear from Milica Antić, which is also from Catalyst Balkans, our non-profit digital transparency manager. She will speak to you about the CRM solutions to managing data and securely storing your contacts and other information about your constituents and your operations. You will be hearing from Creek, an independent journalist from Creek, will speak to you about the communication, secure communication. How do you cover your tracks and how to communicate securely from malicious attackers or from state actors. And Milan Rašković will talk about digital security and strategic nonviolence. He will be focusing on what can you do in general as an organization to secure your infrastructure and protect yourselves from the attacks. So the idea for this digital training came from this survey that we did, and we conducted the survey in the Western Balkans countries, and we got some interesting results. So what we did is conducted a survey. The main part of the survey was conducted before COVID crisis, but also we did a follow-up analysis, and we were interested to see how the COVID crisis made things different. As many of you know, this COVID crisis actually started this digital transformation revolution in the entire world, not just Europe and not just our region, but what is almost miraculous was that the speed of how quickly the organizations and the countries in general turned to technology after the COVID crisis. So it kind of moved our inert societies in a more technological direction. But as we will see from our survey, there are many challenges in this department. Why is it important for you to have the knowledge of the general layout? Well, you are non-profits, and you actually, okay, you don't have a profit motive to better yourself and to increase your effectiveness, but you're actually competing. You're competing for attention from your constituents. You're competing with other non-profits when it comes to writing proposals to foreign donors. So it is actually important for you to have an idea of what's happening outside of your organization and in sector in general, for you to better communicate with your constituency, to more effectively engage it, but also to have something of a market intelligence when it comes to approaching your donors, for example, big foreign donors. So the main hurdle when you ask organizations in the region, so what is the problem? What is the problem with digital security and software and hardware is the question of expenditure. So how expensive all of that is. And we see that almost half of the organizations in the Western Balkans spend below 3% of their budget on software and hardware. So that is a problem. So we have some organizations that are spending more, but general as sector, so the expenditure in this regard is very low. And this is problematic because from this we see that organizations don't see expenditure in this department as an investment. So if you transform your organization so that it uses IT more, so organizations don't get those benefits that they should be getting if they were investing more. So this is from 2019. COVID crisis changed that a bit, and that is probably a good thing. But there is a lot of movement to be done in this department. So we have these results by countries. We conducted this survey in all of the countries that we cover, in Kosovo as well, but here we don't see Kosovo because we had too few respondents from Kosovo to make these generalizations. So Kosovo isn't presented here, but it is very similar in all countries, and I wanted to just give you the lay of the land for all of the countries combined as a Western Balkans similar problem. So we see that that nonprofits, that type of software used by nonprofits is mainly tools for communication and social network management. Okay, text processing, so we're talking about Microsoft Word, presentations. So these are kinds of softwares that are mostly used by nonprofits. And this is like something that you would have seen probably like 10 or 20 years ago. So we see a bit of a lag here. And when we see the annual budget expenditures on software, we see that this is also very concerning. So you see that very few organizations spend more than 5% of their budget in the entire region for software. So that is a problem. The expenditure, the spending money on software is often seen as wasting money. So we don't have this culture of thinking of using money for intellectual property like software as an important part. We see it as unnecessary. So even when it comes to hardware, organizations are much more ready to spend on hardware, buying laptops or computers and gadgets, and buying software less so. So these are categories that of software that nonprofits least spend money on. So we have internet security as this big problem that is not addressed enough by expenditure. That is the primary area that people that organizations are underspending their money on. But also we have like what also seems important to me is like because I'm a data scientist, the advanced analytics and statistics. So few organizations have a very good data on what they do, and that is also a big problem and something that is very important to us in Catalyst. So when we compare the pre-COVID crisis and COVID crisis situation, we see that most of the new expenditure, most of the new software adoption actually was in when it comes to conference calls and webinars. So each organization now has Zoom, whereby Teams, and that is the brunt of the progress made. So this is a bit old. So this was conducted in mid 2020. So the COVID crisis had continued and probably changed things even more. But why is this important? So we are coming to something I call the danger zone. We have organizations adopting new technologies. So we all have laptops, we all have Zoom calls, we all share documents between ourselves, and started using IT tools more. But not enough is said about the security of all of that. So we have a digital transformation that is forced by COVID, and no one is talking about or thinking about the security and how secure all of it is. Not to speak about how efficient all of that is and how well thought out and planned it is. That doesn't matter for now, but when it comes to security, that is the real like danger zone. Not only when it comes to, for example, malicious actors such as hackers, but when it comes to state surveillance and security in general. This is a big consideration that is overlooked right now. So when we talk about expenditure, we also found that organizations prefer free solutions. So approximately 2/3 of the organizations use use free solutions. 1/3 pay for a solution, and we have, well, I don't know how honest the organizations were, but we have a big chunk of them admitting to using pirated software. So in this, we can see that this reluctance for organizations to pay for a solution. And maybe this is a crude way of saying it, pay, because I'm not just talking about in monetary terms. So we have a huge collection of great open source software, but that open source software also requires investment. It requires staff hours for them to learn how to use it, for maybe to them to adapt it or to customize it to their needs. And all of that is like a big investment in time and energy, in institutional energy for an organization to adopt. So this cost of adoption of technology, it's not just in like a paid solution, free solution. So it's more of a deeper understanding of an investment, actually, no matter whether it's time or it's intellectual property wise. So we in Catalyst Balkans, we are promoters of the open source software, but also that also requires big time investment, and many of organizations are reluctant to invest that time. So we have partial adoptions of tools that are used for some times and maybe abandoned. All of you probably have the experience of having, for example, websites which are made for a single project and then they're abandoned and they are left to be vulnerable or unused. So it's actually about the investment. It's a deeper question of investment. So we talked about that webinar softwares like Zoom is something that is mostly used, but we are also talking about a greater about the intent of the organizations to expand their usage of. So we have, okay, everyone recognizes that they want to be more efficient or spend more on software for webinars, but we also see what often comes up when we in Catalyst talk with organizations is IT need for project management, but also for databases, how to store their data, how to be more efficient in their processes. So that is a really recognized need. But also we have as one of the 10 categories that nonprofits intend to start using more is the software regarding internet security, and this is a positive outlook. So organizations do, to some degree, recognize the need for internet security. This is important because they recognize that the data that they sit on, so for example, I don't know, sign-in sheets, or for example, even the recording of this webinar is an important, the list of participants of this webinar, for example. It's very important to be kept securely. And not only that, but also for the participants of this webinar, for example, to know that their data is handled correctly and properly, and that there is not going to be a leak, or that it's not going to be accessible to everyone. So I'm talking about any regular NGOs, but when we think about the independent media or the NGOs that deal with sensitive information, when it comes, for example, to whistleblowers or even violence or domestic abuse, or any of such data regarding children, which has that sit on like a vast amount of personal data. It is important for their constituents and the people they are working to protect to know that that security is something that is thought about. So it is a process. It's not of adopting a single tool, which will be a panacea that will help you with everything. But it is the idea is to think constantly about internet security. But not just internet security, security in general. And this is something that more and more donors are requiring and expecting from organizations. So if you can demonstrate to both your constituents and to your donors that you're serious about security, this will be important for them, and is increasingly important when reaching a decision for what to grant their money for, and determining the capacity of organizations. So there is this added incentive for organizations, for you, to increase your security for real and to better your digital security, but also to demonstrate to people, to the stakeholders, that you're actively doing so. So we see that organizations are to some degree satisfied and unsatisfied with their security. And this actually tells us nothing, because our experience is that organizations rarely have the idea of the blind spots that they have in their security. So there is the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence kind of situation. But the idea of this webinar is also to promote this idea of digital security and thinking on digital security, so that you can be aware of your blind spots. And maybe you cannot fix all of them, but being unaware of your blind spots is what's the most dangerous thing. So with all of you in this webinar, so you're already kind of pre-selected because you are the people from nonprofit organizations in the region who actually recognize this as a problem and want to learn more. So we, from this course, we don't want you to only to learn the blind spots and to recognize the importance of digital security. We kind of hope that you will be standard bearers in your communities and the organizations that you work with, and be promoters of good practices when it comes to digital security. So I'm running out of time, but I wanted to, we will share this presentation with you. If you're interested, or if you want to quote some of these statistics when you apply maybe for grants that will help you strengthen your digital security. But I wanted to just give you a brief overview of what can you expect from this course. So today you will, one of the concrete and specific software tools that our non-profit survey that I was quoting here revealed to us is WordPress. So many of the organizations use WordPress, and this is like I don't know, like almost all organizations have a WordPress site. I don't know the concrete number, but we almost have this monoculture of WordPress sites in a region, and that is a good thing. But it can also be a bad thing. The WordPress security is very important, and Igor Hrčak will talk to you about this, and this will probably help you if you have a WordPress site, or if you plan to have a WordPress site. After that, we will have, so that will be the only lecture today, which will be done by 3 p.m. After which after what we will have a QA session. And next session will be on May 20th, so next week. Milica and I, Milica Antic, my colleague, and I will be speaking about how do you control your data through something called the constituent relationship management tool. So how an organization can effectively manage their community's data and their constituents' data, and why is it important to have good practices and store everything securely. And what is the added value of having that all in one place secure, how to deal with GDPR, so general data protection regulation, which is in effect in EU, but also have all of our countries have similar laws on the books. And we will cover that aspect of this digital security problem, dilemma. Then somebody from CRIC, we haven't got the confirmation yet, but it will probably either Stevan Dojcinovic or his colleague Jelena. They will talk about secure communication. So they are, in case that you don't know, they are an independent media outlet in Serbia, and they are investigative journalists. And they are constantly monitored by states, by our states, but also by our state, but also non-state actors like criminal groups, and they have a really good expertise and real-world knowledge of how to securely communicate with their sources and between themselves. And on the last day, on the May 27, Milan Rašković, our digital security expert, will help your organizations identify the threats that are around you. So we will he will speak to you, and maybe individually, on individual level, if you're willing to share the concerns in the webinar. He will speak to you and try to identify the main threats to your organization, help you identify main threats and those blind spots that we talked about to your organization. And he will offer some open source free or almost free tools which will help you greatly in this regard. And then in the same day, Milica Antic will give you a brief guide of good practices of how to be transparent and secure at the same time, of how to show your transparency and give you best practices to do so securely. So through technology, of course. So right now, it's 1:03, and I want to introduce Igor Herchek, Chief Technology Officer of Mint.rs, who will speak to you about WordPress security.
Thank you. Let me take over. Jel se vidi prezentacija sad recimo?
Da, vidi se prezentacija.
So, okay.
Okay, excellent. Hello all. Thank you for coming to this presentation. My name is Igor. I am 36 years old, and what I'm going to talk about is WordPress security in general. So I've been doing this. I've been in the industry for quite a bit long time. I went my first job as a web developer in 2006, and I'm dealing with WordPress for about 15 years, basically almost from its inception days. And I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Mint Hosting. I'm basically overseeing all technical stuff here as a hosting company. We are very keen on security, and we use technology every day a lot. We are also hosting a huge number of customers here in Serbia, almost more than 12,000, and 98% of those customers are using WordPress. So, I'm going to share some stories with you today. I'm also going to tell you about best practice in WordPress security, and I will try to actually teach you some tips and tricks how to improve your WordPress security. What we're going to talk about is actually a very complex theme, and I've been given 2 hours to talk about it, but 2 hours is not enough. So if you have any questions, anything at all, please reach out. You can see my email and my Twitter handle on the screen. Please reach out, send an email, ask whatever you want. It doesn't matter if it's WordPress related, security related, hosting related, or development related. I will try to respond and to give you the proper advice if I can. So please reach out. I will be glad to hear from you and to answer all questions that you have. So Mint Hosting as a company, we exist for basically 12 years almost, and we offer a range of different hosting services, from share hosting, WordPress hosting, managed servers, basically everything, and also secure business email services that are actually being quite popular with businesses today. And we were acquired by an RT group from Greece in 2019, and this year we actually been acquired by Team Blue, which is coming from Belgium, and they're basically the market leader in hosting in Europe. So we are now part of one very big organization behind us. So what is going to be on our agenda for today? We are going to try to learn what security is and isn't. It's actually a very, very important topic for today, I see. Then we're going to talk about data that you own, the trust that you put into other providers, and of course platforms that you're going to use for that. We're going to talk about WordPress as a platform. Why is it used so widely? What are the weak spots, and what are the angles you need to cover? We are going to briefly talk about how can you recognize if you have been compromised, and what should you do in that case, which is something that people just do not do or do not know how to do. And I will try to share some best practices for WordPress security. Having in mind that you all are non-profit organizations and that you do not have a strong technical background, what I'm not going to do today, I'm not going to share pieces of code with you. I'm not going to go deep into technical aspects. I'm going to try to present you this as a way of common sense thinking when it comes to WordPress security. And why do you need to do it? And what are the things that you can do on your own without any help, outside help, of course. So this is, I think, 7th or 8th time that I'm speaking about WordPress security in the past, I think, 3 years. And usually I open my presentations with this slide. There are some groups of people that are still thinking that there is no reason for them to think about securing your website. You deploy a website and it will just run forever. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Unfortunately, we live in days where websites are actually not something that is sitting on some server and no one cares about. They are actually the extension of your business, or they are your own business, and you need to rely on them very closely. So people usually say, yeah, no one cares about my website. I'm having a pharmacy shop, who cares about my website? Or I don't have any valuable data stored in, and then usually when they get hacked, of course, because it happens, they are surprised and they are asking, yeah, but do I really need to maintain my website? I mean, it's just code on server sitting, and who cares about that? But the truth is actually quite different than that. And there are those people who are thinking that having just strong passwords is basically a solution for everything. Just upgrade your passwords, you're going to be fine. There is nothing to worry about. It will just work. So this is all the myth. This is actually not true, all of this. And this is actually what we are going to discuss today. So let's discuss what actually security is and why do we need it. In IT, we think of security as set of guidelines, set of strategies that are used on every day to prevent unauthorized access to organizational assets. Every organization has certain assets. These days, data is the most valuable asset you have. And you don't want someone to breach into your computers, your phones, networks, or to steal your data. Having these strategies and having this discipline, we help ourselves to maintain the integrity and confidentiality of the sensitive information, the data that we have, because we really don't want anyone to poke into our data who actually shouldn't be poking into it. And deal with security, providing a proper security in one organization can be expensive. It depends, of course, on what kind of organization you are, how big you are, what kind of data you're having access to, how risky it is, and all of that. But breach is always more expensive. And trust me, especially when it comes to application, where we're building applications, if you're breached, it is much more expensive to fix that, because you're not just fixing the application. You need to fix your application and some other things. It's not just fixing the code that you need to do. So large breaches, they will jeopardize the health of your organization. And people might forget about it, but they will still remember that you have been breached, and they're not going to trust you that much anymore. And that's a big issue here. So when we speak of security, we usually see security as something you do once and forget about. For example, when we talk about security of your home, we tend to see our doors and our locks as the ultimate security tool. You just install a proper lock, you purchase a better door, and your home is secure. However, if you're living in a house and your windows are open, having a $10,000 worth of doors and locks is not going to help you, because there is back window that can be used actually to breach your home. So security is not one tool that you use and it's going to resolve your issues. The same goes, for example, with computers. We tend to think that if we have the antivirus software installed, everything is going to be fine, because there is someone taking care of security. But that's not correct, because being compromised from malware is just one way of being compromised. For example, what about physical security of your devices? Someone can come into your office, plug in the USB stick with something, and can steal your data and do whatever he wants. So when we talk about security, it's actually a behavior, a practice, something that you need to do every day. You need to incorporate it in your everyday lives and everyday business. And you should see it as a chain. It is usually presented as a chain, because we say the weakest link in the chain shows how your security is actually strong. So you can have a very strong chain, but in the middle one very weak link, and basically that very weak link determines how good security is. It doesn't matter if you're talking about WordPress security or any other type of security. This basically is same for everything else. So if you want to visually present how that works and looks, this is the chain of security. This is the meme from almost 20 years ago. So if we see this house as your WordPress website, it's very nice. It's nicely built. It looks very nice, and you have a proper garden in the front. This is your team. Your website looks very good, and you have something that is for security. It's this door, but everything else is basically I can just go over from on the left to the right side, and that's it. So how good your security is? It's not good as this door. It's actually good like everything else on this picture. So this is basically your chain of security. And when you're trying to apply this to your organization, you should always remember this picture and try to put certain parts of your organization into this picture and determine actually what are the weak spots in your organization. So when it comes to websites, websites, they're pretty technical stuff. We use them to provide information, to others, to our customers, to people we are working with. But deep underneath, they're actually very technical. They consist of code that someone has made, and they are vulnerable. There is no application that is not vulnerable. Maybe we don't know about those, but they are going to present themselves sooner rather than later. And that's the reason we need to fix them, we need to maintain them, and we are doing that on a daily basis. So the question is, what type of attacks are there? And how our website or our application can get compromised? So there are two ways. There are actually multiple ways, but I'm going to talk only about two ways that your website can be attacked. One is through certain vulnerabilities that exist because the software hasn't been made properly, the website hasn't been properly developed. And there is a list called OWASP. They determine a top 10 security issues, programming security issues that exist in applications today. You can see them on the screen. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but this is a standard list of issues that are present in applications. And down below, there is a link. I strongly suggest that you go and read about it. It's very technical. So if you have someone who has more knowledge in your organization, or you're working with some developers, please ask them to go and to read about this. You won't be believing how many developers actually do not know that this exists. The other type of attacks, they're coming from network attacks. You know them as denial of service attacks. Huge amounts of gibberish traffic coming on your way, trying to disrupt your service, preventing others to accessing your website. We have seen this happening last year. I think that N1 was attacked by the government. Okay. No, of course, that hasn't been confirmed. We also actually been attacked for some political reasons, because we were hosting some political stuff. If you remember those floods, I don't know what year it was, 2010, 12, I do not remember. We were hosting websites that actually help people organize, and we were, targeted because of that for some reason. Some didn't like us, but whatever. The network attacks are other way that someone can cause trouble to you. So we are going to talk about how to defend yourselves from both of these. There are some effective methods for that, and of course, we are going to cover them. So, what are the when we see a website? Many people do not see hacked websites as something that is bad. They do not realize what consequences there are for business like us. It's disruption of business. If you are to disrupt our website, it's basically disruption of our business, and the website to us is actually very important. To you as non-profits, you're probably not going to earn anything from your websites, but other people are visiting your websites, and they are trying to get certain information from them. And the way your website looks and operates and how reliable it is, it paints the picture about your organization. How well are you doing actually? So your business is going to get disrupted. You're going to lose trust and reputation, and that is going to cost you, of course. If you're applying for funds and you're constantly breached, you're going to have a hard time actually getting to those funds. That's reality, So if you're operating with some data, for example, if you're gathering data from people and you have access to some private data, if that data is leaked and lost, there could be a criminal investigation. That you could have some serious legal issues. I've seen those in action, and they're not pretty, trust me. Then you're also, by neglecting your website, by not taking proper care, you're also getting your visitors into danger. For example, if your website is breached and if they try to access it, and if the person who breached your website is redirecting all the traffic from your website to somewhere else, they're basically going to be in danger. They could get malware. They could get into trouble because of that. So you need to worry about that also. And of course, your website might not be removed completely or deleted, but it could be silently compromised, and like that, it is used as a threat to other infrastructure and other websites. It's actually used as a resource to attack others. So you don't have a responsibility just to yourself, you have a responsibility toward your visitors and to basically everyone else on the internet, because your websites can be used as a sort of bots for further attacks on other platforms. So for today's topic, we are going to see how our security chain looks like. And I'm going to cover a few different topics. I'm going to talk about personal devices, mobile phones and laptops. Even, trust me, it is very well connected to WordPress security. And I have one very fresh example from 2 days ago. Actually, I'm going to talk about it. We had a customer who was breached because of that. So I'm going to talk about that briefly. Then we're going to talk about choosing a hosting platform, and they all look alike, but they're not the same, trust me. Then I'm going to talk about WordPress core plugins and themes. How do you deploy your website, what you do with it, and what you shouldn't do. And of course, I'm going to share some of the best practice in WordPress security with you. So let's talk about local threats. So we all have mobile phones, we are all having computers and everything. The first thing that you need to know is that if you're not paying for a service, you're a product. What does it mean? That means that that service is getting from you something in return, because they need to cover the expenses. And let me give you an example. 2 days ago, we received a support ticket from one of our customers who was completely breached. They've been breached for every possible side. Their emails have been breached, their hosting service has been breached, their website has been hacked. So it's basically a total loss of online presence for them. How that happened? Someone installed the correct application on phones from some Play Store, and that application actually stole the passwords and email accounts access. So they were able to actually obtain access to basically everything they have, and to send spam and phishing emails, and to wreak chaos, really. So basically what we had to do, we had to suspend their service. We need to restore their backups, to see access logs, and spend a huge amount of data, a huge amount of time actually, to try to resolve the issue that they have. And it took them almost 2 days to actually recover. There are backups, there are some good stuff, but only one application was enough to bring them down. One wrong application installed from untrusted source on a phone was enough to bring them down. And they're not non-profit, they're not interested in the government, they're just some business, random business, and basically they were hacked instantly. We are seeing this more often. You won't believe, for example, we are seeing this with hotels. A few years ago, we had a customer that plugged in the USB stick into one of the hotel's computers that manages, customers and schedule of clients coming in. And they basically were able to bring that down, and attacker also managed to get access of their mail server that was hosted with us, and their customers started receiving phishing and scamming emails to provide them with credit card numbers, and it wasn't pretty, really. It took them 10 days to recover. Many of the customers, they canceled their reservations, and it wasn't really pretty. And that's just because of one USB stick. So what I'm trying to say is, please do not install everything that you come across on your mobile phones and computers. It can be very ugly for you, even if you do not know it, because you really do not know what application is doing behind your back, on your phone or on your computer. Please don't use correct applications. There are always open source alternatives. There are free alternatives. But try to avoid correct applications as much as you can. I know that sometimes organizations cannot afford to purchase some piece of software, but please try to avoid it as much as possible. If you can't avoid it, at least separate that application in different accounts on your computer, or use different phones for access to business stuff, private stuff. Try to separate them. If you're managing, if you have a few people in your organization, please use password managers. There is an excellent password manager called OnePassword. It's free. You can use it in your organization, or if you need a business account, it's not very expensive, but it is a good way to manage and share access to sensitive information, not just password, credit card numbers, everything else. For example, here at Mint, we are using OnePassword for our organization, and it's been great for us. And you need to beware of scam phishing emails. An email that looks like legit email might not be a legit email. Let me give you an example. Last year, we acquired one business email customer, because they were actually scammed via email. So they are doing something in the industry. They are producing, they're in manufacturing business, and they have a partner in Romania. So what happened was they received an invoice that looked like just a regular invoice from their partner in Romania, and that invoice was around 50,000 euros. No one was paying attention, and they paid that invoice. 3 weeks later, their real partner from Romania was asking, where is the money? You know, you're owing us 50,000 euros. What is happening with that? Why are you late in your payments? And our client was like, we paid, I mean, 3 weeks ago. And then they realized that actually they got scammed. Why were they scammed? Because they were using improper email service for their business that wasn't filtering spam and phishing emails properly. It wasn't doing proper email scans, and that got into their inbox, and they learned the lesson on the hard way. And that's how we acquired our customer. They had to spend 50,000 euros to learn the lesson. So I'm trying, please take care of this, because this is a real issue, and you won't believe how often people fall for this old trick. Next is the question of hosting platforms. And the one thing that you need to know, and that's the reality actually, we have access to all of your data. It is accessible to us, basically everything that you have, all email communication, except that is strictly encrypted. And you know, if you're using a special service, then it's encrypted and we don't have access. But for everything else, we see basically everything. And that should be a big worry to you. You need to worry who are you giving your data. People tend to choose the cheapest hosting services because, you know, it's a hosting. There is no difference between different types of hosting services, but actually there is. Not all hosting providers are in business of hosting your data. Some hosting providers in business of selling your data also, because having access to vast amounts of data and selling the data is actually much more profitable than selling hosting services. Which brings us to another point: is you need to avoid free hosting services because of that reason. If you're planning to purchase a certain type of hosting service, please try to learn more about the security practice. Who has access to your data? How they're accessing it? Where is it stored? Do they have backups? Do they transparently speak about maintenance, or if if the service is down, where can you inform yourself about that? Those things are very important. And when you decide to actually purchase a hosting service, for example, for your WordPress website, try to determine your real needs in terms of visitors. How many visitors are you going to have? Are you going to handle sensitive data? All of that is very important, because that will determine which type of service do you need. Can you use a shared hosting? Do you need a virtual private server or something else that will help you host your server? Then you need to ask your provider about what kind of protection they offer. We always, hosting providers usually offer some level of security and protection from attacks. For example, application firewalls, mod security, prevention of brute force attacks, which is also very important for WordPress, because WordPress administration is always under attack. And if your hosting provider is offering that kind of protection, that's going to help you a lot. Also, if they provide some sort of security scanning, can you access their security reports, etc. So those things, they're going to reduce the risk that you're having with your website. And it doesn't matter if government has something against you or not. Those things are very important. And you know, before you decide who are going to stay with, ask these questions. These questions are going to help you to determine if they are actually a good choice for you or not. And of course, learn more about available backup strategies that they offer. And if there are additional strategies that you can purchase, please do. For example, we are offering Backup Plus to our customers, which is basically 30 days of backup for their websites. And it's proven that, you know, having 30 days of backup is actually a very good thing, especially if your website is hacked. You can basically return it to the previous state in any of those 30 days. And that's very important. What is also important about choosing a proper hosting platform is try not to use the cheapest hosting solution, like shared hosting services. There is a reason why they're cheap, because we are cramming a lot of users on one server. So basically all of them, they are using one server and the resources of that server. And that could actually be the most expensive solution for you, because if one or many accounts are compromised, it will have a negative impact on performance and the security of your website, of course. Next is the email on share hosting is a very bad idea for the same reason. It's basically thousands of accounts hosted on one server. And if one of those accounts is compromised, if they start sending spam to Gmail, Yahoo, or wherever, you're going to get on blacklist, and then your business is going to be disrupted. Share hosting email is not very secure way to communicate with others. It's not flexible. You cannot, bend it to your organization needs. So, especially as nonprofits, I'm always trying to actually convince you to use better security services, better email security services. There are many of those. There are Proton Email, there's Zoho. We are also offering business mailbox business service to our customers, but I think that you should consider this because that's very, very important. The next two topics are basically, some people are saying, okay, we are not going to use the cheapest hosting. We are going to purchase a server that's going to resolve our issues, which actually is not right. If you purchase a server, it's basically equally vulnerable like anything else. If it's not configured properly, if services are not deployed properly, they are just vulnerable as anything else. So try not to do everything by yourself. Try to ask for help from a professional who actually knows what he's doing. Because that is going to reduce your expenses in the long run, and it will help you actually to run your website easier. It's going to be easier for you. And the last topic is actually very important, especially for nonprofit and especially those that they are targeted by governments. Hide yourself behind Cloudflare. Hide yourself behind DDoS protection platforms. Cloudflare is a good example because it's actually free. You don't need to pay for anything. Just hide your servers and your infrastructure behind Cloudflare, because if you're under attack, Cloudflare will handle a good deal of attacks for you for free. You can also upgrade for a business account, which is like 20 euros per month, which is not a huge expense, and it's going to help you tremendously in protecting your valuable assets like a website is. Okay, so let's discuss WordPress, and let's discuss what WordPress is and why are people using it, and why it's been a #1 choice of many people these days. So WordPress powers more than 49% of the internet, of websites on the internet, and it's a huge number of websites. What you need to know about WordPress, it has a huge community. Two reasons actually why it's been so popular. It's very easy to use. It's easy to customize and extend. So basically you can create whatever you want with WordPress these days. If you want, a shop for a pharmacy, no problem. If you're a restaurant and you need the website, it's not a problem. Or if you need, e-commerce solution, it's not a problem. You can do all of those things with WordPress these days. So you can build whatever you want with it. It has a huge community. It has a huge variety of extensions, and it's very well maintained. The WordPress core, basically what you're getting when you install WordPress is what we call WordPress core. It's very well maintained. It's actively developed. And in the past, let's say 2 years, we haven't seen major security issues with it. A major like all those 49% of websites on the internet just being hacked instantly. So it's stable, it's well maintained, and it's actually a good choice. And it's not like actually have a better alternative. There are alternatives, but they are not as good as the WordPress. Trust me. So you're basically covered. Updates are coming often if there are needs for bug fixes. Security issues are also very quickly patched, and they're distributed quickly. So when it comes to the core of WordPress, it's actually quite good these days. So the only thing that you need to do with your WordPress core is to update it regularly. Between versions, what you want to avoid is so-called a version lock. What is a version lock? Version lock is when you have installed certain amount of plugins or certain amount of themes, and they only work with a certain version of WordPress. And if you upgrade, it's going to break everything. It's better to change, to switch to a different plugin, or to update your theme, or to change the theme, than to be version locked. Because with newer versions of WordPress, you're going to get new features, performance improvements, and of course, security patches. So don't postpone upgrading the core, because the more you postpone it, it's harder going to be for you. So try to avoid version lock. It's very, very important. Try to upgrade it regularly if you can. When it comes to WordPress plugins, they are actually the major reason why WordPress is so popular these days. They are usually developed by third-party developers, such as myself. They are used for basically changing the existing behavior of WordPress, or you can add new features. Basically, whatever comes to your mind, you can do these days. And installation and updates are done through the WordPress marketplace. Of course, you can sideload plugins if you wish, but 95% of plugins are installed through the WordPress marketplace. And WordPress plugins are actually the biggest security risk in any WordPress installation, because they are bringing a new pieces of code that is not a part of WordPress core, and because they are made by third-party developers, WordPress plugins are actually the biggest security risk in any installation. And they're not having just a huge security impact; they have also a huge performance impact. So if your WordPress is, starting to feel slow, because that's probably because you have too many plugins installed for different various purposes, and you really need to rethink your strategy of actually WordPress plugins. You really need to try to remove some of those, because you really do not need everything. So because more plugins you have, it's bigger your security footprint is, and you're going to be an easier target to be penetrated and hacked by someone else. The vulnerabilities that are coming from plugins, there are many, and lots of those plugins, they are not maintained properly, or they're being built by people who are actually not trained in security, or they didn't have security in mind when they were building them. So that's the reason they are a huge security risk. So what can you do to minimize that risk, or to reduce that risk? The first thing that you can do is check the developer reputation before installing. That's actually quite simple these days. There are websites that you can use to check if a certain plugin was penetrated before. You can see if it had previous vulnerabilities. If you're planning to buy a certain plugin, check what kind of support they are offering, how quick they are to respond, how often they update their plugins. That's also a very important thing. If you're planning to purchase a premium plugin over some free solution, thinking that a premium plugin is actually going to be better for you, that's not always the case. Actually, being premium doesn't mean quality. Usually, it's vice versa. So what I'm going to suggest is, please don't try to install cracked plugins. People do those things. Cracked plugins are always infected with malware. They always have some strange pieces of code that shouldn't be there, and you should avoid them. Use them if you want to try them before purchasing. That's, I guess, fine, but please don't use them in production. You're going to get hacked very, very quickly, and you're not going to know what happened to you. If you have some plugins that are not used, that are deactivated, please remove them. They are still a security risk, even though if they are not activated, they still can be used to hack your presentations without any issues. And lastly, of course, update your installed plugins, please, because on a regular basis, because if you're not doing that, you're going to have a huge security issue on your hands, and you're going to get breached. People are not doing this for some reason that often. They just tend to forget, about that. I don't know why. We are often trying to inform our customers that they need to do that, but people just forget about that because they're thinking, I installed WordPress and it's going to work. So it's not going to work. You need to maintain it, and maintenance of plugins is actually quite easy. You just need to click a button and it's going to update all of your plugins. So please do your maintenance regularly. Second. The next topic is always the WordPress themes, of course. You need to see WordPress themes as basically they're not something that just determines how your website is going to look. They're actually these days they're very complex applications. They have multiple dependencies. When you purchase a theme, they almost universally come with a bunch of plugins that need to be sideloaded because these days people are purchasing themes that are so-called multi-purpose themes. And what multi-purpose is, basically they're trying to fit needs of many people with only one theme. That's my example, previous example. If you need if you're, for example, a restaurant, you need a restaurant website, that one thing can do that. Or if you want to build a forum on top of WordPress, it can do that also, which is of course nice because you don't need to purchase many different things, but it's also a problem because they have multiple dependencies. They're extremely complex to maintain, and they also pose a security risk. Everything that I said about WordPress plugins applies here. It's basically the same thing. Check from who you are buying your theme. Check how regularly updated it is. How often they respond to security issues. All this information. For example, if you're using something from WordPress Marketplace, the thing that is actually available from within WordPress, you can see this information. You can see the comments of people who are using it. You can see when it was the last update or the list of last updates. So all this information is actually available to you inside WordPress. You just need to pay attention to it, and it can reduce the security footprint and the risk that you need to deal with on everyday basis. The same thing about updates for plugins and WordPress core applies here. Please update your themes regularly because, again, you're going to receive security updates. If your WordPress installations are complex, and if people are often afraid that something is going to break. But there is also a solution for that. It's called backup. You can create a backup of your website before update, and once you do the update, if something breaks, you can basically revert to the previous backup. Or if your hosting provider allows for it, you can create a staging environment, copy your website over there, try to update everything and test it out. And if everything works, you can basically repeat that same process on production. So that's a good way of doing things. The wrong way of doing things is just ignoring the number of themes, plugins that need to be updated. That's just a wrong way of doing things. And please try to avoid that kind of a behavior. So there are those, of course, who are capable, who have money, who have resources to build things on their own, or they want to extend WordPress for their own needs, to build something special. And that's great. I'm all for that. But you need also to determine with your team, the team of developers that are going to develop the solution for you, you need to try to determine what security risks are you facing. Are you going to collect personal data? What that piece of software is going to do? So you need to determine what security risks you're dealing with. You need to make sure that when you're hiring someone, that he actually knows about top 10 application attacks, and that he knows how to deal with them while developing the extension that you need. And once you're done, actually you're not done. You need to find someone who's going to do a code review for you, who is going to actually tell you how good that piece of software has been built, and who's going to do a proper penetration testing, security testing of that code, to check for security risks if there are any, or to give you some recommendations how code can be improved in order to be more secure, to be better. So when you're trying to develop something, please also try to find someone who is going to review that code. I know that one guy who is currently a participant here, who actually knows what that means. So he can attest that that's actually very important. So, WordPress, basically there is a plugin for everything. There is a solution for everything. And people just tend to install everything they see. They just cherry pick plugins and themes, and it's basically done. And when it comes to security, it's basically the same thing with WordPress. People tend to think that if they install a security plugin, it's going to resolve all their issues. You have a plugin in place, it's going to protect it, all is good. But that's actually wrong. So here's something that I call a Burek discussion. It's coming. This next slide is coming from WordPress Serbia. We have a Facebook group on WordPress where people are gathered around WordPress as a topic, and we discuss different topics around WordPress. And this is actually basically every discussion about WordPress security and security add-ons for WordPress is like this. For those who are not speaking Serbian, I will just translate. The guy above asks which plugin he should use to secure his WordPress. And the first guy says that he should use something that is called WordFence. But because WordFence is very bad for your server, he also suggests that you disable the most useful feature of that plugin, which is basically there is no reason to use it. The second guy just lists all WordPress security plugins that there are, which is also very useless. And the third guy just says none of these is actually good enough. You need to do this, and he's also actually wrong. Security add-ons of WordPress, they are misleading. If you want to actually do a WordPress security properly, you need to do a lot of things on the server level. You need to do a lot of things on the networking level, but having a security plugin in WordPress, it's not going to protect you from DDoS attacks. It's not going to help protect you from those top 10 application security issues that I just described. They're not going to do any of those things. What they're going to do, they're just going to tweak the configuration a little bit, which is something that you can do it by yourself, because it's written on the WordPress knowledge base how to do those things. And with each plugin, you're basically extending your attack surface. So security plugins are no different at all. For example, 3 years ago, there was one security plugin, and it was insanely popular. It was called iTeam security plugin, and then people found out about security issue within that plugin, and that basically resulted in many websites being breached. So security plugins in WordPress, they are a bad idea, and you need to avoid them. Instead, it's better to purchase a better hosted service that is more suitable to your needs, or if you're purchasing a server, to configure it properly, then install a bunch of security add-ons, hoping that they are going to resolve your issues. They are not going to resolve your issues. They are going to actually introduce new issues, and probably they're going to slow down your website, so they're not going to do any good to you. Now, let's say that you have been compromised. How we are going to recognize this? This is coming from our experience as a hosting provider, because we are dealing with these issues on daily basis, and we are helping actually our customers to resolve these issues if they're being hacked. So all of this that I'm going to tell you now is coming from experience, long experience of dealing with hacked WordPress installations that are not being properly maintained for some reason. So the first thing that you're going to notice is you're going to start getting a bunch of emails with very strange content, Nigerian prince trying to offer you billions of dollars and stuff like that. You're going to see emails that you actually haven't sent in your sent folder. This is going to happen if you, for example, if you have a contact form on your website, which is connected to the mail server. So if your website is compromised, the credentials are actually, basically available to anyone to see them. Then if you try to actually have a proper conversation over email with someone, your emails are going to get rejected by a large services such as Google, Microsoft, Yahoo. Your domains are going to get blacklisted because of this. Your website might be redirected to some place that is completely unknown to you. It's basically a good sign that your website is actually hacked. Then you can see that WordPress is starting to get feel slow and sluggish with each refresh. That means it's been infected by malware. Basically, it looks like everything is fine, but it's been certain files have been ejected, and with each request, with each page that is open, that piece of code is actually doing something. And if you're having your own server, or if you're using a cPanel type of hosting service, you're going to see that the resource usage is much higher than usual. That's actually a good sign something is wrong. You can also see it by yourself. For example, on your computer, it's going to get exceptionally warm, or your fans are going to get loud, or your CPU usage is going to get much higher when you're browsing a compromised website because there is something in it. Then you are going to start finding content that you actually haven't made. Posts and pages in administration that were made by someone else, but not your team. That's also a good sign and good way of telling that something is really, really wrong. If you're searching for your domain name on Google, you're going to get some strange results. Usually they start with Chinese and Japanese characters. That means that someone actually managed to break into your WordPress administration and to put some content. They're doing that because of trying to build up their SEO to rank higher on search engines like Google. Then, if you're, for example, observing files on your server, you might see files that have been edited, modified recently, but you haven't done that, or you can see some files with very strange names, very cryptic names and very strange content in them. That's also a very good sign that you have been compromised and that someone is actually using your website and your server or hosting account as a resource for something else. And of course, if you have been really, really compromised, your hosting provider is going to inform you that some phishing and scam attacks are coming from your website. What attackers will usually do, they are going to, for example, create a small folder on your server. They're going to put HTML code that looks like, for example, PayPal or some Bank of America login screen, and they're going to redirect people via scam emails to that form, asking them for their personal details that are going to get logged, and then they're going to be able to steal their money. We are dealing with this on everyday basis. You won't believe how many of these we are getting from especially Bank of America. You won't believe, or PayPal. We are basically at least 2 or 3 of these every single day. So that's actually a good sign that you have been compromised and that you need actually to do something about that. So what should you do if your website is hacked? First of all is to change all of your credentials. That means credentials of all WordPress users that you have. Also, you need to check if there are some users that you do not recognize. If you do not recognize them, remove them or just disable those accounts and deal with that later. I also always suggest that you change all of your email and hosting platform credentials. That is a good way to actually cut the attacker from the resources you're having access to. And once you do that, you can start determining the extent of the damage that has been done. There actually, if you cannot do it, if you don't have anyone who is tech savvy, who actually knows what he is doing, ask your provider to help you out. Usually they are going to try to help you out. They can do a security scan for you. They can see if there are some files that have been modified or that there are some files with strange content in them. Seek out for help. Usually providers are willing to do. We are willing to do that for our customers at least. If your website has been totally lost, which almost never happens, because no one wants your website to be dysfunctional. What attackers actually want, they want your website to operate, but they want to actually use it in the background as a resource for something else, not just the website, but the resource or hosting platform that you're having. They're not actually that much interested in probably in your content, something like that. Of course, this doesn't apply if you're actually targeted directly for some reason. That's a different topic, of course. But 90% of attacks that we're seeing, they're just there to actually obtain access to WordPress installation or the hosting platform as a way of accessing a resource, not for any other means. So if your website is completely lost, if you're not sure if you can clean it up, restore a backup. Ask your provider if they have backup. If you have backup, you also need to restore it. But beware, backups could also be compromised, and you need to check for them. If you're not sure how to check that, ask your provider or your developer to check that for you. We also see this very often. For example, people are asking us to restore a backup from a week ago or 2 weeks ago. But what you need to understand is that those 90% of attacks, 90% of the breaches, they happened like 7 months ago, 8 months ago, and they've been lying dormant for quite a while. They're not activated immediately, and you can switch providers 2 or 3 times before they're actually used at all. So what we are, for example, we are seeing WordPress installations that have been hacked in September last year or September 2 years ago, but for some reason they haven't been used for anything. And a year later, they're actually activated and they're used for phishing, scamming, attacking others, and everything else. So if you're not sure, if you're not sure if your backups are fine, if you're not sure if your backups also haven't been compromised, or basically if you're not sure if those backups do not have malicious files, ask your provider to check it out, or find someone who can basically do it for you. Because if you restore a backup and it's compromised, you basically haven't done anything to resolve the issue at hand. So I'll try to summarize the next 2 slides, everything that I talked here about. The first thing that, of course, you need to understand that the security of your WordPress installation is not the question of the platform itself. It's actually the question of how are you approached with maintenance, how you approach to building your WordPress website, what plugins are you using, what themes are you using, and how wisely actually you made your choices about those things. The second thing that I really want to point out is don't trust anyone with your data. Really, you need to choose wisely, especially when you want to purchase a hosting platform. Choose wisely. It's very important for you, because not all providers are equal. When it comes to basically WordPress security or any actual application security on the web, it doesn't matter if it's WordPress or it's Joomla or Drupal or any other platform. It's all about managing risks, because once you're out there, it's about managing that risk. That is a potential security risk. And the choice of good hosting platform can actually help you a lot when it comes to managing that risk, and can greatly reduce the risk. So please try to avoid the cheapest possible hostings. There are hosting platforms that are basically like $1 per month. They're not good. They're not going to do much good to you, because maybe you're going to pay less, like 50% less or 100% less than for a proper hosting service, but you're going to lose valuable time, resources. People are going to lose trust in you, and that's going to actually cost you much more than proper hosting service. That's very important for you to understand. You also need to try to practice security properly inside your organization. It's not just about installing devices or software that is going to do that for you. For example, I worked in VIP Mobile in 2007, and it's a mobile company, so security was very strong. but people found a way around it, how they were writing passwords, their strong passwords on sticky paper, and they were basically taping it onto monitor because they just didn't want to use to remember them or to use software that was actually available to them for that reason. So that's basically the same if you're having 1, 2, 3, 4 as a password. It's useless. So try to incorporate a good security practice in your organization every day, because it's going to help you in the long run. When it comes specifically to WordPress, I'm going to try to summarize everything in a few points. First, please do not install everything that you find on WordPress marketplace. You really do not need everything. You also do not need a plugin for every single feature. Some of those can be easily done by developers for cheap, or you can find articles how to do that by yourself. So please do not install lots of plugins, because they're going to have a huge security and performance impact, and no one is going to help you, is going to be able to help you with that. So be picky about them. If you're going to purchase premium themes and plugins, they're not cheap, but again, that doesn't mean that they're of good quality, that the code is made properly or maintained properly. So see their developer reputation, what kind of support you're getting, how quickly they have to respond, and their previous security record. If that plugin has been breached, even if that plugin does 100% of what you need, you should avoid it. Make sure that you're having backups. A good way of having backups, there is this 3-to-1 strategy, to have a backup in 3 places, 2 remote places, and 1 basically in your safe or on a physical place that's near you. That's usually for providers, for websites. Try to find a hosting provider that provides a good backup strategy, and if possible, purchase additional storage to put your backups aside. That also is going to help you when it comes to those days that you're going to get breached. You should disable file editor in WordPress, because it's useless, and it's basically giving a direct access to the server. So you should disable it. What else you need to do is, if you have a team of people who need to access WordPress installation, don't give them all administrator access. They really do not need them. They need it. If they're managing just content, give them the editor role, which is more than enough for content management, but they're not going to be able to actually change the settings of the WordPress, or if their account is breached, they're not going to be able to do anything with that. They're just going to be able to fiddle with your content, but that's about it. That's at least damage that they can do. What you also need to do is to try to secure sensitive location files in WordPress. And instead of me telling you what those locations and files are, there is an excellent article listed here on my screen. There is this URL. It's called Hardening WordPress. It's made by WordPress itself. It's not too long. It's easy to read. It's not technical much, but it's the thing that you can do by yourself. And it's basically a good overview of things that you can do in basically like 5 minutes to harden your WordPress installation by yourself. What else I can tell you is to also add some additional layer of security on WordPress administration login. For example, if you choose a hosting service that doesn't provide protection from brute force attacks, which is a bad idea, you should actually find a service that does that. Try to add 2-factor authentication with time tokens that can be generated by your phone, or basic server authentication. So that's going to also help prevent attacks and brute force attacks, especially when it comes to WordPress administration. And the last thing, there is something that basically all of these examples have in common. People are trying to do everything by themselves. Always, the funds are always the reason, because hiring a professional help is not cheap these days. But don't try to do everything by yourself. At least seek advice. If you're coming from Serbia, there is a WordPress hosting group on Facebook. We have a strong community there. We're helping people with advices, and even with hands-on for free. If you're coming from Croatia, there is also a Facebook group, a strong community, also on WordPress.org. There is a strong community there. So I advise you join those communities. ask your questions. Those communities, they're not just for developers, they are basically for everyone who's using WordPress. So if you need help, so if you need at least advice, how to approach certain aspect, how to deal with something, go there and ask for help. And if you're from Serbia, we're gladly going to help you. And I'm quite sure that it's the same for all other WordPress communities, because they're huge and they are welcome. They are willing to help to anyone, to provide help to anyone. Of course, if you need some help, you can always reach out to me. I will be more than happy to actually answer all of your questions and provide you with actually proper advice if you need some. So that's about it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for time that you spent listening to my presentation. I really hope that you find it useful. And of course, if there are any questions, I am going to now answer any of those you have.
Thank you, Igor. I have a immediate question. So when it comes to security, why do you think that, what are the advantages of using platforms like WordPress over other open source platforms like Drupal to develop your site into? So is there something security-wise that's specific to WordPress that makes it more advantageous for an organization, for example, to have a site built into than Drupal, for example?
Drupal is actually an excellent platform, and it's also widely used, not widely as WordPress, but WordPress has a huge community. And to be honest, WordPress.org is actually basically what we're all using. It's a free code that we're all using for our websites. But there is also the WordPress.com, which is a platform that you need to actually pay for to build your website on it. So the great incentive for WordPress, for Automatic, which is actually a company that is behind WordPress as a project, is monetary incentive, because if they do not develop WordPress properly, the core, their paid service is also going to get compromised, and they're going to lose a huge amount of customers. Also, the third-party developers, their businesses, they're actually pretty huge that are built around WordPress, and all of that is actually having a positive impact on the security of the core itself. So the core itself, because of those reasons, is like, for example, 3 or 4 years ago, I will be saying this, of course, it wasn't that secure, their development process not very good, the changes weren't often, and there were issues. That's the reality of things. But these days, because the community has gotten bigger, much bigger than before, and because it's widely used on basically almost 50% of the internet today, it had a positive impact on the development process. So their development cycle is much shorter and quicker, and the quality of code is better. And those are the reasons why we want to actually use the WordPress. Drupal is a really good platform. Drupal was, but it's not maintained as well as before, because they lost the community, and basically others who made their businesses around Drupal, they went away to WordPress to actually work there. So those are the reasons why you should actually choose WordPress. Also, you have a huge community. There is a lot of knowledge, accumulated over these years. There is you can find a solution for almost every problem with a simple search on Google. It doesn't matter if it's security related, or like an advice or a solution for something else. Knowledge is basically available anywhere, because the WordPress is so widely popular, and you can do that just about for any other platform. So that's an additional reason why you can do it. Also, because of that huge popularity, we have seen the increase in number of domestic communities like Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, etc. So each of those communities, they are working hard to translate WordPress, to connect with other WordPress users inside their communities, to help out. And because of all of that, we are seeing, for example, a WordPress knowledge base has gotten, and documentation has got much better in the last 2 years than it was before. And for example, this article that I mentioned about hardening, it was like 3 paragraphs long 2 years ago, and now it's actually almost 2 pages long. So that is also the sign of how things are going.
Great. If any of other participants and attendees want to ask a question directly, you can raise your hand or you can use chat to pose a question. But while you're here, I wanted to pick your brains. This might not be directly related to WordPress, but since Mint.rs is actually in the hosting business, maybe can you tell us more about what is your relationship with the state? Like, have you had any examples of maybe the security services wanting to pick through the data of your customers, or some kinds of, I don't know, seizures, requests by the government so far?
We actually do not do business with government at all. That's our policy, because from what we learned is, if you want to actually have a sustainable business, you need to stay away from government and do business with the government. However, we are having customers that are coming from government. For example, civilno.rs is actually our customer for last 10 years. They're hosted with us, and they are actually have been compromised like last year, and they were stealing credit card numbers and from Banks of America. That's the example I was talking about before. So yeah, I mean, that happens. They have built a custom platform for some reason, and it happened. We haven't seen any requests from the government asking for access to personal data. Of course, if they have a valid reason, a legal reason, we are obliged to comply, of course. But we are not giving access to data to anyone. Actually, even inside our company, not everyone has access to everything. And if we need to access, for example, to a specific mailbox to debug what's wrong, why some emails are not coming or going, we first ask for permission before accessing it. I mean, we can do that without your knowledge, but I think that being transparent about that with our customers is actually a good thing. But by letting them know that we actually need to be able to access their data and maybe to read it, to be able to help them, I think that's a good practice, and that's what we're doing actually internally. But we do not share or sell data to anyone, especially not to the state.
And this is something that's interesting to me personally. Maybe it's not important to the participants, but when speaking about hosting services, like how do you local hosting services compete with much cheaper foreign hosting services? For example, for virtual private servers, services like Hetzner or other dirt cheap hostings. And what would be the advantage of going with an organization like you, or I don't know, mCloud, or some kind of local hosting over the foreign services?
The difference is obviously support. So first of all, not all organizations, not all companies are able to purchase services abroad for some reason. And they are the amount of support, the quality of support that they're going to get versus the domestic provider is quite different. The treatment that they are going to get is quite different. First, they are going to get support in their own language, which is a huge benefit for them, because the reality is not everyone speaks English still. And even if they do, they're not fluent enough to talk about technical aspects that are required to be able to communicate with support, especially when it comes to virtual servers and stuff like that. The another reality is that if you actually want to have a good service that is stable, that's going to be really available to you 24/7, you cannot really think that all of that is going to be possible if you're paying like $1 per month for hosting. That's just not possible. That's the reality. It doesn't matter how, because if we are selling you a hosting for $1 a month, then you can think how good our servers are where are we hosting your data? You have no clue where we're hosting your data, who has access to it, and what we're actually doing with it. Are we actually scanning your emails and selling information to some advertisers? But that's the choice that each one of our customers has to make. For example, 3 years ago, it was very hard for us to convince small businesses that they need separate business email instances for them that are not to share hosting, But for example, 3 years later, today, it's not that hard for us to do that because we spend a huge amount of time and, of course, money to try to educate them about good things that coming with that service, even though it's paid service. Maybe it's not too cheap for everyone, but there are certain goods that are coming from using that service. So it's all about education. It's not just about money. If we've seen positive outcomes when we spend some time on educating wide audience about certain topics. That's the reason we have a blog on our website. We are writing about different topics, business, hosting, technical stuff. And what we're actually trying to do, we are trying to actually educate people. It doesn't matter if you're going to become our customer or not. That's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is actually to try to teach people to think about certain things in a certain way. So that's the primary goal of that. And the outcomes of that goal, you're going to see them for yourselves. For us, it's of course an increase in number of customers for different types of services. Our services might not be the cheapest, but what you as a customer you can expect is you're going to get proper service. It's going to be available. It is secure, and if you need support, the support is going to actually be there for you, which is very important, especially in those times of need. When you really, really, really need someone to pick up the phone.
Yeah, and I just had one comment and flash question. So, for example, we have a crowdfunding site donacije.rs, and it's built on WordPress, and we inherited this site from an organization who used to run it previously. So when we did inherit it, it was a complete mess. It wasn't updated in years. Now plugins, the core, and everything was built customly, all in Jambles, and we actually got an experienced WordPress developer to take a look at it and see what can be done. And he said that he can't do anything, that it's much better to build the new site than try to fix all the legacy code and everything. So we actually didn't build a new site. We decided to go to fix it. We haven't had any security issues so far, but what you told us about throughout your talk was a kind of vulnerability by mass exploit. So and not being targeted specifically by a specific hacker targeting specific organization. It's like a mass approach, and what sticks and gets exploited. But have you had any experience with sites being specifically targeted for something and hacked, brought down, apart from DDoS attacks?
Yeah, sure, we did. Not from our own customers that are hosted with us, but what we are actually specialized in is something called damage control, and you can think what that is. It's basically something breaks and you need for yesterday fixed because you have a client who is not very happy with you, and that's basically damage control. Basically, you call us to try to fix things, overnight. And yes, I actually had a chance to see such things. The reality is with WordPress or everything else, 90% of attacks are automated attacks. So how do they do that? They basically have an army of bots, other websites, other hosting platforms that have been compromised, and they are using them to scan other servers that are hosting WordPress installations, if you're talking about WordPress, of course. And they are just trying common things on them, the known vulnerabilities in the known plugins and themes. And if it sticks, it sticks. So that's the ultimate approach. The 10% of those that are actually hacked for something else, they have been targeted specifically by someone who has something against them. And that is especially much easier if you have something built that is, custom made, because there is something that we call penetration testing. It's basically a good hacker trying to penetrate your application and to tell you what vulnerabilities there are, to try to actually to fix them. And that kind of testing can also be automated by someone for not good purposes. So if you have been brought down because someone exploited that specific thing in your application, you have been targeted directly, and that basically changes this discussion completely, because there are different types of security measures and security projects you need to take from that point on, because you actually caught someone's eye, and that's a different story actually. But I had the chance to see businesses destroyed for reasons like management not allocating enough time to fix security issues found by researchers, because they want new features being built immediately because they need to sell. I've seen people go to prison not because of that, losing their houses, their families. I've seen many things in the last 15 years. They're not pretty, they're very ugly. And I also had the chance to sit across people who actually hacked Telecom Serbia, for example. And it's not a pretty picture, and you really should avoid it, especially if you're dealing with sensitive data, or if you're running a proper business. You really want to avoid all of that, because it's not a happy ending. It is, of course, if you're government-based company. For example, we've seen the SolarWinds in the United States. The breach, that is actually a perfect example. They are a Fortune 500 company that is providing security services to other Fortune 500 companies and the whole United States government, and they got breached. So basically everyone else got breached, and that's because they were neglecting internal researchers, internal messages. Management was neglecting them, and you see what happened. And they're ultimately destroyed. As a company, they could have the best product in the world. No one is going to renew the contract with them anymore.
Okay, thank you, Igor. You were great. I don't know if we have any other questions. Milica, maybe someone posed something to you directly, but I don't see any questions in the chat or Q&A. So, Jelena Ilic had a question.
Okay.
She posed the question in Serbian, but I will try to simultaneously translate it. So does Mint do the diagnostic of existing sites in the area of digital security? What we've been listening so far, and does your company gives recommendations to your clients to better their security, or are you just like the hosting provider? And what level of service, what type of service can be expected from your specific company? So
hosting providers, that kind of analysis takes actually a lot of time. It's not like a tool that you fire up and it scans everything and tells you the result. So you need, if you really want to be done properly, if you have built an application, a special custom application, it takes time for developers to go through all that to try to find things that are actually, risks. There are risks that should be improved. There are some automated tools that can help with that, but usually those automated tools, they do not give a clear picture. They can just tell you where you should look, probably, but that's basically it. Everything else is manual work. That's of course not part of any hosting service on this planet, including ours, of course, because that's a separate service. We do not do that officially. I mean, we are not going to find that service on our website listed as something that we can offer. But yes, we actually do those things. We are doing penetration testing for customers, usually through word of mouth. They recommend us to try to bridge some application, to see if there's some vulnerabilities, to actually give them advice how to improve it or how to improve their internal development process. Yes, we can actually offer such service, but it's not part of the hosting service, and of course you cannot expect it to be part of the hosting service.
How expensive is that service? I'm just asking the question that's going through everyone's mind.
Very expensive, very expensive. It depends how much I'm going to pay. Depends on type of application that you're built and how big that application is. But we're talking about thousands of euros. Great,
thank you. Yeah, that was Jelena from Orca. She asked this question. So I don't think we have any more questions. So I wanted to thank you all again for participating in this first webinar. We will inform you about the second and future webinars also, so you can participate in those too. I want to give big thanks to Ivan Hrček, who's I don't know, he works for a company, he has a company, he's a CTO, but I see the activism in his heart, like when he speaks passionately about the WordPress community and everything. So thank you again, Igor, for sharing your passion with us and your knowledge.
Always, always.
Thank you. Okay, see you all in future webinars. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.